Welcome to Cross Transformation. It's Mariam here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about setting boundaries. Hopefully, we are all at that point in time that we are mature enough to feel good about setting boundaries with other people. Personally, I didn't know how to set them because, as I've said previously, my childhood was with that borderline mother, and she also had narcissistic traits. So you can imagine what was going on back then. I mean, not only we didn't have boundaries, literally we would mistreat each other. There was verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. I mean, my identity was in abuse, as well as domestic violence, because she couldn't work it out with my dad, so they would end up fighting, arguing, and getting involved physically, which was quite sad to witness all those events as a child. And I'm pretty sure many of you guys may have had a similar experience. Very traumatic. And I mean, experiences like that wouldn't allow us to realize who we are unless we do the healing work. We get ourselves on the personal growth journey. So going back to boundaries, where you end and I begin. Well, that wasn't my childhood. I couldn't exist at all. It was all about the world revolving around that borderline mother. Are you serious? When you're dealing with a mother like that, you can't expect to have boundaries. You can't expect to feel safe, to feel protected. So I didn't know where other people would end and where I would begin. Like, Mariam would exist, because deep down I had this belief that I can't exist because the world had to revolve around that borderline mother. So the emotions and the feelings that I had attached to boundaries were guilt, shame, blame, resentment. So I had such a hard time dealing with those feelings and emotions that I couldn't think of setting boundaries. I had to realize those negative emotions, to heal those emotions, to understand that my identity is in Christ, not in those negative emotions. My identity is in God. The reality is found in Christ, not in that mother, not in abuse. So take a deep breath in. So the healing work has contributed so much to the realization of my identity in God, and that the reality is found in Christ, not in abusive relationships, not in being abused. So I want to encourage us to do the healing work so we can arrive at setting boundaries, walking into healthy relationships. You see, when it comes to setting boundaries, again, those of us who have had a tough or a difficult childhood are going to struggle with setting boundaries, because we keep experiencing realities that are aligned with not having boundaries in place, or by setting boundaries, somehow we are going to be manipulated, or somehow someone is going to be angry with us, not directly but indirectly. So deep down, we need to look into these things that, hey, what's going on? If I would think about setting boundaries, am I afraid that somehow that friend is going to manipulate me? That friend is going to be angry with me? But don't give up on setting boundaries. And if someone happens to manipulate you because you simply are asking for your own space, let that person go, because they are not healthy to be with. I'm going to give you an example. Back in time, a friend of mine would call me quite often, and she would vent out on me. So she would be really, really sad and angry with a situation in her life. She would pick up the phone and would call me and say, hey, this is happening, and she would be going on for maybe 20 minutes, something like that. And then, because I didn't know how to set my boundaries, I would be feeling overwhelmed. I didn't know how to go back to my own state of being after that phone call. Eventually, I decided one day that I'm gonna set my boundaries, because I just began learning about boundaries. So she called, and for the first time, I realized that she was projecting her own state of being onto me. The moment that I said, hey, look, I think you better spend this time by yourself, reflect on your situation instead of being on the phone with me, she didn't like it at all. It was like, what? And straight away, she said, well, I'm not angry. I think it's you who is angry. And I was like, what? I mean, how could you say that? So, you see, when I decided to set my boundaries that, hey, I'm not allowing this to happen again. I'm not going to be overwhelmed again because of this phone call and that she's dumping her problems on me. That moment, she projected herself onto me. Later on, a couple of days later, I tried to communicate the situation with her, and she said, well, you know what? I won't be talking as much like before. And I thought, oh, she's now guilt-tripping me. So you see, all I was doing was setting my boundaries. First of all, she projected her state of being onto me, which was anger. Later on, she guilt-tripped me instead of acknowledging her state of being, instead of communicating that that conversation wasn't right and that she was intruding my boundaries. She was projecting her state of being onto me. And then I decided that that friendship wasn't right for me. So I had to let it go, and that was a healthy decision. Another example would be someone communicating their pain to us the whole time. finding different topics to communicate their pain through those topics to us. And most of the time, that pain has got to do with sadness, resentment, anger, and they don't happen to heal themselves. They want us to be available 24/7 because they're in pain. And again, we need to have boundaries. Sorry, I can't be available. I can't be the target. I need to maintain my own space of being. And guess what? You need to spend some time on your own by yourself to enjoy your personal growth journey, because we need to be left alone in order to grow. So these examples hopefully will help you to identify where people, toxic people, are trying to push your boundaries. Don't allow that to happen. The reality is found in Christ, not in those toxic friendships, relationships, and people. So hopefully you'll find this video helpful. Bless your soul. Have a great day. Be at peace. Look after your precious soul. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day and God bless you.